When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Good morning, world. Good morning, all the listeners of Join Up Dots in their thousands. We have got a great show for you today. We've got a lady, if you listen to sort of the voiceover man at the beginning of the show, he will say, for the people that do not give up. And I haven't given up trying to get this lady on the show. She's been quite a pull. We originally booked her in about episode 50, and now she's coming live at episode 91. But I've been speaking to her beforehand, and I know she's not going to disappoint, because she has been, for over 25 years, the go-to lady to help companies, individuals, and the world find their true path in life. She's the founder and CEO of Successes by Design, ReMake My Life, the Women of Global Change, and other multiple companies, and is known to be able to get to the core of an issue, even if it's buried deep inside ourselves. She can find the very thing that is limiting us and holding us back from a life that we deserve. Sharing the stage with some of the top speakers in the world and being a lead mentor in the Billionaire Adventure Club has led her to appear on national talk and radio shows with audiences in the millions, and has been mentioned on Forbes, just to name just one. So she's obviously a lady who is massively in demand. But what makes this lady such a powerhouse in the motivational arena? Where did she come from to have such an influence in such a competitive world? And of course, what tips can we gain from her to assist in our dreams of a life designed by success? Well, let's find out as we start joining up dots with the one and only Shellie Hunt. How are you today, Shellie?
I'm very good. Thank you, David, for that beautiful introduction. I appreciate that.
You don't need to appreciate that. You've got enough out there to weave a lovely introduction quite easily, haven't you?
Well, thank you. Thank you. You know, I believe it's about serving. You know, it's not about how long the introduction is, even though it's very kind and I appreciate it, but it is all about serving.
Have you always thought about that? I'm going to cut to the chase. Normally I talk about where you come from and stuff, and I'm going to sort of lead back onto that. But have you always believed it is about serving people where true value is given?
I have. I've always had a calling for betterment in humanity, and I've always followed what I felt was my purpose, and that was to make a difference here on the face of the planet the best way I can.
And how did you know that? How do you know what you're on this planet to do? Because that's one of the questions that all our listeners are desperate to know. And it was one of those questions that used to annoy me big time when people would say, just follow your passion. And I used to think, I don't know my passion. How can I follow something that I don't know? So how could you find your passion at, a reasonably early age to be able to create what you have?
I think that at a really young age, about 6 years old, I was introduced to a group of people that would go on to kind of be the next wave of the human potential movement. It was Bob Proctor, Alan Dorman, really the founders that have gone on, Werner Erhard. There was a group of us that were trained by Alexander Everett. And Alexander Everett was always about 20 years ahead of his time, but I was a child in with these guys, and I was the only child. And so it was one of the things that I just knew it was a calling. I knew before then that there was something different, and I used to dream about it. I literally grew up under a house near Boston, Massachusetts, and, literally with one pair of shoes at a time. And I used to dream at night that I would be able to help people and that I would be able to make a difference. It was never really about me getting out of where I was at. I didn't even realize I was poor. I just knew that I had love, but I didn't realize the extent of the poverty that I was raised in, even with one pair of shoes at a time. And then I was introduced to these concepts of humanity and human latent potential and human latent abilities and human latent programming and the things that we adopt and define us. See, I believe that we all come into this world, matter of fact, I know we do, as free, limitless human beings. And we have different qualities that we exude, whether it be persistence, whether it be acceptance, whether it be forgiveness. You know, when you watch children, they may squabble or argue, and then 5 minutes later, it's like, aren't you guys arguing? No, they're over it. They do not hang on to stuff. They don't see the obstacles. They see solutions. If a child wants something, they keep going after it, even if they're not supposed to have that cookie before dinner. And so I started to learn that we really come in that way. And then, you know, we're born into planet Earth 101, into this three-dimensional existence. And we kind of get groomed by what's around us and by our environment and the digestion of our experiences. And we start to see limits. We start to see paradigms. We start to see and form our self-esteem or our self-opinions and our opinions of others. And so, you know, that was, having understood that at a really young age kind of led me to, you know, wanting to help humanity and be able to step in and awaken, you know, and share with other people that anything is possible.
Right, big questions. I need to jump in there. Big questions. Number one, at the age of like 6 years old, why are you hanging around with people like Bob Proctor and names like that? How did that happen?
Because I was asking questions that were kind of beyond my age. And if you ask me how I knew that at that age, I really don't know. But I was asking about energy, and I was asking about different things than normally a 6-year-old asks about. And so it was one of those things that they just, you know, my mother would say, don't talk about that. People will think you're going to be weird. And, you know, both Bob Proctor, Tom Wilhite, Alan Dorman, there was others that had come into my mom's life. One of her best friends had introduced my mom to these people. And, you know, my mom was definitely on the other side of the tracks, but they spotted something in me and said, do we have permission to mentor your daughter? And my mom was open to it, which is very unusual. Matter of fact, it was really funny because at one point, that's what led me to California, as I was brought here about 7 years old. And at one point, my mom called and she said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm learning about the mind. It's all about the mind thing, is literally what I told her. And she was like, that's it. You know, you guys are flying me out there. I'm afraid you're doing something weird to my kid.
Yeah, absolutely. You would think that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, yeah, she started going, wait a minute. You know, and then she came out and she started, you know, learning some, you know, some of the trainings of mind dynamics and some of these other early on trainings of, you know, kind of what I call, there's another wave of human potential and there's another wave coming right now. You know, and so, you know, that's kind of how it happened.
But why you? That's what I'm interested in. You know, that these are adults. In today's day and age, with all the sort of situations with child abuse and all that kind of stuff, it wouldn't even happen, would it? You would not let your daughter go off with men across the country. Obviously, in those days, it's a sort of different mindset, I suppose. But what was it that they saw in you and not all the other children or the other adults that they came across?
You know, I've asked myself that, David, time and time again. I've been very blessed to have incredible mentors in my life. And I think it's because I was open to the mentorship. I think I was open to it. And I also think it was part of my calling. It's part of my purpose here. I believe we all have a purpose here. And I know you said you're not sometimes sure what your purpose is. I think we all ask ourselves once in a while, what the heck am I doing? Because you know, if you don't ask yourself once in a while, what the heck am I doing? You're kind of not stepping out. And there's times we have to step out in faith. But I think that I just was really blessed. And, you know, I've asked myself that so many times. It's so funny you ask that because a lot of people don't ask me that when they interview me.
I would have said that was the obvious question, isn't it?
Well, I think it is, but people don't always ask that. Matter of fact, you're the first. So I like that, actually.
So do you not slightly resent it in a kind of way that when you listen to Michael Jackson being interviewed, he used to say he lost his childhood. Was a part of your life where you would have been running around the fields of Boston and, messing around with your mates? Was that sort of taken away from you, or was it an equal balance of being a child and being this young kind of positive guru?
It was an equal balance. I was very lucky in that, and so that respect, I definitely had a balance, which it could have gone the other way, but it didn't, which was good. And I still run around. I'm still, have that side of me. I believe that when we're light and when we're engaged in the moment, that life is just incredible. And, it's so funny. I mean, I appreciate so much, and so anyways, but that's, you asked some interesting questions, David. I like your style.
Well, that's what we're about. We're trying to make it different from the others. Because I've been looking at pictures of you whizzing around on your jet ski and with your North Country palace or mansion or shed or shack or whatever you have. And there seems to be, as you're saying, a freedom that appeals to you and you like, and it takes you away from the norm. A lot of people don't get that. A lot of people are in the rat race and basically are living their day to work. But you seem to be able to almost come into the spotlight and do your thing and then disappear and live a very, very simple life. Yeah, okay, you've got a jet ski and things like that, but really separate it. Is that a conscious thing that you do, or is that just something that has developed over the years?
It was something that is a conscious choice, but I did develop it, and it's not something that, like I said, we get into this three-dimensional world, and I've been in what you call the rat race. I've been in corporate America. I've done the 9 to 5. I mean, I've done everything in odd jobs, from working factories when I was, 19 years old, stuffing feather blankets, to waitressing, to working in corporate America. And so I've really run the gamut of understanding different industries and different of service positions. But one of the things that was really important to me was actually enjoying the journey of life. So many people make it about money, or they make it about, the final destination. And, I just find that there are many missions on this journey. And there are many different things, and whether good or bad comes in, it's all a learning process. I think this is like the most ultimate school of learning, is being on this planet. And the win I see is enjoying more of the moments than not. And so for me, that's truly living, is really enjoying the quality relationships you have. Really being, I don't care if you're in a factory stuffing feather blankets. What are you getting out of this? What are you thinking about? Are you just grumbling and complaining, or are you creating in the back of your mind? Are you looking at, I would even look at, how do they run this organization? Like, I was never into just being resentful. I'm stuffing a feather blanket. And so all of it is a learning process, and it's all how we look at it. And so that's one of the in the moment keys for me. And then it's also being able to realize, human latent wise, programming wise, and potential wise, we are creatures of habit. We're absolutely creatures of habit. I cannot say it enough. And what may work for you as habits today may not work for you in 3 months. And about every 2 to 3 months, I take a look at my schedule. I take a look at my life. I take a look at what's up and coming. And I adjust my schedule. And I adjust my timing and my habits consciously. Too many times we get on this treadmill and we just live in this habit. You get up at 6, you work till 5 or 4, you go home, you eat dinner, you watch TV, whatever it is, and you go, pretty soon you're all, I have no time. I have no time for a relationship. I have no time for another business. I have no time to create. I have no time with my children. I have no time for this, no time for that. And the truth is, time is man-made. I'd like to say woman-made, but it's probably man-made.
Go on, you can say it.
Time is, I think woman-made, just so we know when we're supposed to show up. But animals and other things don't exist in that paradigm. And we limit ourselves, and we start to become, because we're habitual creatures, we start to become the sum of our patterns versus the sum of our authentic essence.
This is fascinating stuff you're saying here, Shellie, because I was having a conversation the other day with a gentleman called Sefer Tavadian, and he used to be the interpreter for the Iranian president. And he now structures his life where he says, basically, he came to a realization that we are just batteries. Humans are batteries. And he was running himself down, expecting to work on full potential. And he couldn't, because we were tired. And we've all been in that situation where you roll out of bed each morning, you go to do your work as good as you possibly can, and then you just wait for 2 weeks vacation and then try to recharge yourself ready to go. And what he does, and what it seems to me a lot of the successful people who have got those choices that many people haven't, or they perceive that they haven't, is that he designs his life that he works incredibly hard for 6 months and then nothing for 3 months. And he says that he can actually structure his life that everything gets done because he knows when this mini retirement, as he calls it, is going to come in. And it's so important, isn't it, that we do look at ourselves and try to focus on the fact that if we are going to be successful, if we are going to design our life, if we are going to sort of reach for the stars, we've got to look after ourselves, and we've got to keep ourselves recharged to be able to keep going forward when things get hard.
Absolutely. And we've got to look at the balance in our life. It's like our self-time, our workout time, and that's where that whole adjustment, comes in, of looking at, okay, how has my life been running for the last 45 to 60 days? And is it serving me, and do I need to change it for the next 45 to 60 days? And how do I need to adjust? And then once we have that, it's actually being in the moment of everything. Really being in the moment. So many times, and I used to do it in my 20s, where I'd put my head down and I just wanted to go, and I wanted to understand business because I had understood human latent potential, and I wanted to understand owning multiple businesses because I knew it was possible. I didn't have an example of it, but I knew it was possible at that time. And, I put my head down and I'd be like, phew, I got through that. I survived. But I totally missed the journey. Totally missed the journey. And so I think it's really about enjoying the journey.
And so what you're doing really is you're auditing your life on every 3-month basis. You're looking back and you're doing a balance sheet of what's worked and what hasn't. Now, we do that in business, of course we do, but we don't do it on ourselves in any shape or form, do we?
No, we do not. And you're absolutely right. It is like a balance sheet. And where am I developing? If I'm developing a new company, and I've done it with working with corporate America and broken off to form a new company. And when I did it, I was like, wow, how am I going to do this? I'm working all day. I'm a single mom. There's all of these things. And what I realized is some of that time, instead of watching that hour and a half of TV or that hour of whatever, or I got up an hour early maybe, I would start dedicating certain parts of time to start taking a bite out of creating my additional dream or the things that I wanted to create. But, if it was, I'm going into a new relationship, and I laugh about it all the time because people will be like, I have no time. I have no time at all. And then they'll meet somebody they like, and the person will say, do you want to go to dinner? And they go, oh yeah, I'd love to. They suddenly have time, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a great example, because people that, we've all dated at some point in our life. Well, most of us anyways, 98% of us at least.
But Dalai Lama hasn't. I'm sure he hasn't.
Yeah, but people get that when you give them that example. You suddenly make time. Well, I think that we need to run our time, not time runs us. And so we got to look out also and go, where am I going? Am I starting a new business right now? Am I in a relationship? Do I want to start a new relationship? Where am I going that needs my attention for this next 45 to 60 days? And let me adjust accordingly.
So going back to the little 5-year-old in the dodgy shoes in Boston, how much of that girl is still in you now? Obviously, you are successful. You're standing on huge stages in MGM in Las Vegas and places. But how much of that original you is still there, and how much of you has been designed for success now?
Well, I think that little girl will always be there. And, I think that, it shows up in different ways. For example, I think we all have something that follows us from childhood, whether we realize it or not. Growing up having that one pair of shoes, now I have a shoe room. I had a girlfriend that grew up with me, at that time, and she never had a lot of food. So if you go in her pantry, we could all survive, if the end of the world came. And so I think that there's always something that follows us that we need to recognize and look at. And I think that the other side of me also has a calling. That little girl has a calling, and that is to reach out to as many other women, children, and people in need as possible. And it was one of the reasons why I formed the Women of Global Change, which it is men and women. It's not just women. But when I started to go into third, fourth world countries, and I started to see the need, and I understand need, where, you grew up in love, but what do you do when you have that kind of poverty? And the kind of poverty that I've seen, whether it be in Haiti or in some of these other countries, Honduras, have a great need. And that definitely calls to the little girl in me. It does. It calls to, somebody reached out to their hand to me when I was very young. And, I've gone through my life right now. I'm just reaching out as much as I can to other people and other things to make a difference. Somebody made a difference in my life, and I feel like it's part of my calling to give back.
It's such a shame, though, isn't it, that people like you and hopefully me are needed so much in the world, when if you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, it's down to the individuals to make that personal choice and create their own reality. And the fact that the self-development movement and the sort of motivational speaking and the things that I'm doing are so sought after, it's a kind of crying shame, isn't it, that the people out there listening to this, buying the books, buying the courses, haven't realised really that the core essence of what makes a life successful is down to them.
It is. It is always up to us. We have free will, we have free choice. And it is a practice trait. We're born with it, and then we're kind of like trained out of it. And so it's really, does come down to the individual. It always does.
Are there certain people that you see that you'll almost be able to see that spark? It's like when you see American Idol or X Factor and somebody walks on the stage and they open their mouth and they start singing and you go, oh, wow, I wasn't expecting that. Do you bump into people that you can see that they're just like ready to go, but there's just something holding them back before they actually become that shooting star?
Yes, I do. And I do spot it. I'm known to spot what they call cash cows. Well, I do. I spot it in businesses. I spot it in ideas. And I do see it in people. I see light in all people. That's just kind of how I operate. But I also see at times, where there can be, I don't want to say blocks, but barriers. And sometimes it has to do with fear. Sometimes it has to do with, do they feel unworthy? All of those type of things. And then there's the other side of it, which is, the fear of success, which is the total opposite side of it, which is really all about what is the cost. And it's never what is the cost. It's what they perceive they would have to pay for success. And many people have this paradigm that to have success, oh, well, I can't have a career and a relationship, or, oh, I can't, do that till I have this, or I have to give up that to have this. And that's really all self-imposed. That's all somebody else's paradigms, because you absolutely can have it all. And you absolutely can have a balanced and happy and fulfilling life. And so those are paradigms, and yes, I do see them. I speak with so many people, and I engage with so many human beings every month, and but it is a choice. It is a choice.
Is it just a mindset shift? Is it just like being in a car and for the 30 years you're in second gear, and then somebody says to you, "Here, do you realise there's a third and a fourth gear here?" "Oh, is there?" And you suddenly change and it goes faster. Is it just mindset that can take your life on to the next level?
A lot of it is, because how I think affects my behavior, and how I behave, actually how I think affects my feelings. Right? So how I think affects my feelings. How I feel affects my behavior. And how I behave affects my results. So how I think is definitely a core foundation of the results and the actions and the interactions that I have in my life.
So when did you start making that big move? We called it on this show the big dot, where you actually look back, and for many people it's a bad time in their life when they look back on it and they go, "Oh, I wouldn't want to go through that ever again, but if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be who I am now. It was my big dot." So you went through so many jobs and you came from such little beginnings. So when was it that the Shellie Hunt that we see now and we hear now actually started shifting gear herself?
I would say it was in my late 20s is when I started to really delve into and I started out actually in my early 20s reading Think and Grow Rich. I still do it every day. I just kind of flip open the book and pick a spot. But I started to really engage my own thoughts and my own mind, and really started talking back to myself, not just letting my subconscious mind talk to my conscious mind. And it's almost like when you want to go to the gym and you got to go, and you're like, well, I'll go later tonight. And then tonight comes and you're like, well, I'm really tired. I don't feel like. You talk yourself out of a lot of things. I did anyways. And so I actually had to go, no, I'm going. I'm stepping in anyway. And so that really started to happen cognitively in my 20s. By the end of my 20s, I started to put it more into action. And that's when I really discovered about the habitualness of, planet Earth 101, 3 dimensions, and going, okay, I keep getting on these treadmills of habits that served me at one time and don't serve me now, or serve where I want to go. And so I would definitely say 20s.
but you must have had the fear, the self-limiting fears that everyone has at that time. Because I read Think and Grow Rich, and I remembered it was the first time I was on a train going to work, and I was reading this book, and it's a brilliant book. It's a bit old-fashioned in places, but it's a marvelous book. And I remember thinking it was the first time in my life, my God, I could be a millionaire, and it's down to me. And it was the first time I'd ever had that thought. But how did you take that thought, those positive statements of that book, and actually overcome those fears that everybody else has? How did you manage to quieten that little voice?
I gotta say, fear still comes up for me. It comes up for anybody that's playing out there in the world. And it was really funny. My daughter is 16. She's leaving for college. And I said, how are you doing? And she said, Mom, I'm so excited and I'm so scared. I'm so scared. And I said, remember that feeling. Because anytime, when I walked away from corporate America, I felt the same way. When I walked away from my job, and that I knew was six figures, it was actually less than six figures the first time I walked away. It was five figures, and I was so scared. And every time I have gone into a bigger arena of my life, there is a fear factor. There's excitement and there's fear, and it's like electricity, and it lives in your body. And it's kind of like, what do we do with this fear? And, some people freeze, some people back off, some people talk themselves out of it. Some people just put their head down and they rush right through it, and they get through it like they survived, and they don't even experience it. But I think it happens at every level. I think it happens time and time again. I think it happens in our relationships. People get hurt, and the next thing you know, you're on the line and you want to be vulnerable. Well, your knees are shaking and you're excited, but you're scared because you don't want to, you're excited. It's something you want, but you're scared because you have a fear of getting hurt. And I think that people do the same thing in their career. And I think people do it in every level of their career. I don't care if it's just starting out a new business, or if it's taking a business you have and it's going to the next level, or you're hiring the first employee, or you're hiring the 12th. We all have our threshold, our limits, our edges. And wherever your edge is where you want to play. Now, not like a lemming, not like dropping off the cliff and being, I'm just going to free fall and I don't know how I'm going to feed my family. But really doing it with execution in mind, and yet at the same time moving forward on those edges. And so I still go on those edges. Every once in a while, I just got a television station, actually, a film, not a television station, let me correct that, a film studio, a full-on film studio, and I'm getting ready to film some women's shows and a People's Advocate show and these other things, and I sat there saying, have I lost my mind? What am I doing? Have I lost my mind? And I laugh at myself. I recognize that electricity and that excitement and fear and nervousness, or whatever you want to call it, and yet I laugh. And I'm like, because I know that space. And so, familiarize yourself. Where do you go when you're on that limit? Where do you go? If you know you go into confusion, then you can call yourself on it. If you know you go into, being frozen, you can call yourself on it and laugh at yourself. Oh my gosh, I'm freezing right now because I am excited and fearful and all these things.
It's a key message to our listeners, that it really is, because somebody like you is obviously extremely successful, and then there's going to be people even more successful than you, and it is just the area that you're in, and it doesn't matter if they're taking that first leap of faith or that last leap of faith. Everything that is new, that takes you out of your comfort zone, is scary, isn't it? But from my point of view, every time, well, actually, I spent years and years and years suppressing fear and just kind of blindly going through it. Now I actually look for fear, and the things that have scared me most, certainly doing this job has scared me stupid when I first started doing it, have been the things where I look back now and I go, wow, best thing I ever did that. But it was so scary, I almost didn't. I had that little voice in my head saying, oh, they're going to laugh at you. Why are you doing this? It's not going to work. It's all right for other people. And you do benchmark yourself against the next level, but you do not get this opportunity to share something so openly with people like yourself who go, yeah, I'm scared. I'm still scared, but I will grow through that.
Yep, absolutely.
Did you think somebody like Barack Obama is scared?
I would be if I was the president of the United States. I'm sure I would be on my limits and on my edges, and especially with some of the things that, some of the decisions. I think if you're going to run any country, that there has to have its moments of your knees are shaking a little bit. Absolutely.
Because I think that must be the hardest job in the world. Not just that they go in as young men and they come out 2 minutes later looking like old men, so it must suck them dry somehow. They all look dreadful, don't they, after about 15 minutes in the role.
Love it.
But you don't get any training. There's no training. It's the one job that you basically walk through the door, almost convincing the world that you can do it so that they vote for you, and you make it up as you go in. I think that must be so terrifying every second of a day, where you get a decision thrown at you and you've got to make it up, and you've never done it before. It's a brand new decision. And I do think if you look at these prime ministers and these presidents, and even if you don't think they're very good, you've got to sort of go, wow, they're really putting in the effort to be able to do what they're doing and still put in the suit, shining the shoes, and putting themselves out there every single day, because they must be quaking.
Well, I'll tell you, it's not an easy job. Anytime you take a leadership position, you have got to know there are people that are going to come after you. There are people that are going to support you. There are people that are going to say, wow, you're even crazy trying to go for prime minister or the president of the United States. And it's really important, I think, that you have people around you that support you, because if they didn't have those kind of people around them, they wouldn't have reached the level that they're at. And I think that that's in any industry.
But how do people get that peer group? Because it is so important, and I keep on saying it time and time again. If you're in a situation that you want to change, you've got to look around and you've got to see the people that are surrounding you, because so many of those will anchor you, because unfortunately they don't actually want you to be a success, because then it will look bad on them, for one thing, or that they care about you so much that they don't want you to fail, and so they will hold you back. So how do people who are out there listening to this conversation, they're going to work, they're doing a job, and they want to change their life somehow, how do they get that support?
Well, I think one of the things is, definitely be careful who you share your dreams with. And that is one of the lessons that I had learned early on in my 20s, when I started doing women's leadership and some of the stuff out there in the world is, people have a tendency, they're habitual creatures, we all are. And so they will have a tendency, the majority of them, to see you as you were, not as you are becoming. And so I took a really good look at some of the people in my life. And, some of them I actually had to distance myself from. Some, they distanced themselves from me. Because they were upset over success, or they were upset over whatever, their own paradigms that they're not producing. And yet at the same time, I found that there's always it's like a vacuum. There are always people to come in to support you when you're ready and when you're open to it. Too many times we're trying to fix what's behind us, when what's in front of us is the answer to what we need right now and for the next level of where we're going. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I would definitely look at, where are these people, in their lives? Are they moving forward? Are they, that doesn't mean like, are they moving forward financially? That means, are they moving forward in their life? Because that can look in many different arenas. Are they fully supporting you? In other words, I have people on my team, if I say, I've got this really crazy idea, I'm going to go buy this film studio, and we're going to do this, that, and the other thing. And if any of them look at me and go, oh, all right, then I don't want to play with them. Even in my work environment, I would let them go immediately, because there's got to be a opening for you to be able to step through. We're not on the face of this planet to be alone. We need each other's support. And I think that that's really important. So even if you have less than a handful of people that are in your close circle that are supportive of you, then that's really all you need, that think you're hotter than popcorn and peanut butter, that just think you're the cat's meow, you're it. That way, when you start to doubt yourself, and I go, I don't know if I can do this, and I do that, there are times I have doubts where I ask myself, it's very short-lived before I step into it. But I say, I don't know if I can do this, and the ones around me say, we think you can, go for it.
So do you have any sort of really close confidants that would say to you, Shellie, this is absolute madness, you really shouldn't be doing this, and you will listen to them?
I do. I do. And then sometimes I don't listen to them. And it's because I believe that, well, I do. I have very close confidants. Bob Proctor is one of my close confidants, and I have several others. Les Brown is one of my close confidants. And I have several others that are very close to me. But I also believe that I know for me, I have an intuition that I listen to very closely, and I'm really am clear in depicting, is this a human latent program or is this actually my intuition? And that's a very learned task by a lot of people. Women, it comes a little bit easier for, because sometimes we just can't even explain things and we follow them. But I definitely, if I don't listen to them, it's because there's a calling inside me that tells me I'm supposed to step there or move there.
Well, let's play some words that really highlight what you were just saying to a T. These are the words of the late Steve Jobs, and we play them generally on every show because he talks about following your calling, trusting yourself, intuition, even karma. Let's play the words, and then I'm going to talk to you about them afterwards. This is Steve Jobs.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever, because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and that will make all the difference.
Does it make the difference?
It does make a difference. Absolutely, it makes a difference.
In what way? Personally, can you look back and connect your dots?
I can connect a lot of my dots in the past. And I think that the times where I wasn't sure about my dots, looking back, I definitely walked in faith. I definitely walked in intuition and faith. And I think that is I think it's a genetic trait. I think we're all born with it. It's just a muscle that we don't always use or listen to. But I love Steve Jobs' words. I mean, how eloquent. What a great way to put it.
They are simply powerhouse words. And I've said this numerous times on shows. I would love to go back in time and find out whether he had been planning that for months or whether it was, oh, God, I've got to do a speech in 15 minutes. Let's just write something. I wonder if it was truly from his heart or it was something that he needed to leave with the world, because these are words of the ages and they will be true for so many people in 100 years. And I hope those words stay and people are still reflecting on them. Because when I started doing this show, I knew I wanted to base it around those words because they meant something to me. But I didn't realise at all how much they mean to literally everyone.
Absolutely, they do. They say so much to everyone. And he probably did think about what he was going to say. But I don't know if he read it off the sheet. Either way, I think it came through him. Sometimes there's things that come through us and we go, did I say that?
I live my life by that.
I think that's one of the things he did, whether it was when he was writing it or delivering it, physically. I think that it definitely was something that was a larger message that came through him.
That's a real key point, what you said there, because in your life, there's a lot of freewheeling. There's going to be a lot of presentations that are word perfect. You've built them up. But with all presentations and motivational speaks, there's times when you just go off on one. And do you ever listen back to yourself and kind of go, do you know, I don't actually remember ever thinking that, but wow, what a good point I've made?
Sometimes I was just at the World Congress Center, and I had done a speech there, and it was really funny. I don't even call it a speech. I guess they asked me to talk. Because speeches to me always kind of, it's like the politician's writer writes them, and they give you the teleprompter, and there you go. And I don't work that way. And so, I just knew the gist of what I was saying, and I got up there and started talking. And, when I got off and, you look there and there's a standing ovation, and you get off the stage and you go, what was half of what I just said? Because it literally came through me. And that is one of the things that, yes, if I'm doing specific business trainings and I'm doing business strategy and business expansion and platform and PR and all that stuff, and I'm teaching in that arena, I have specific, tangible strategies that I find work, no matter the industry, that work. However, I never set out to be a motivational speaker. I have to say that now. But I find that there are things that come through me that are messages that are of much higher purpose and definitely elicit hope. And I hope that's what I do in this lifetime, is I elicit hope, and that people see the possibility of living a fulfilled life. Because so many people make it about money. And yeah, does money help? Heck yeah, I can help a lot more people with money than without it. But it's really about hope and enjoying this journey no matter where you are.
Is that easier to say once you're successful? Because I'm sure there's going to be people out there. I agree those words. I now totally agree. And I can see how my life is changing amazingly. But I'm sure there would have been a time sort of like 10, 15 years ago when I was trapped in the rat race that I would have said, yes, you can say that because you've got the choices. You've got the ability to say, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. But when you're in the rat race, you're just on the treadmill and you can't escape from it.
Well, I guess I was my own hope when I was in the rat race, because I was like, I think I'll get up and, an hour early, and I will start creating, another business, or I will. So I guess I was my own hope. I was my own little cheering committee for a little while there, working in the, in the background. But I think it's really stepping into, one, being awakened to our thoughts and, realizing what they are. Two, being able to run our own time, not let our time run us. Three, being in the moment. There's so much about being in the moment that, we have no guarantees. I have no guarantees I'm going to be on the face of this planet tomorrow. And so many times we're, on this treadmill, and yet we don't stop. And we don't stop and enjoy, this quality conversation with our child or our spouse or our loved ones or our family, or, and I think it's how we look at it. I know it is. It's that paradigm.
So everyone can have the life that is designed. Is this what we're saying in this conversation?
Absolutely they can. Absolutely they can. Some people, they want to be home at 5 o'clock. They want to do, they're happy being in a 9 to 5. And it's what makes you happy as an individual. I worked with this billionaire, and it was really funny because he invited me to his home because he wanted to show me his home, and we were going to do a session at his house, and me and my assistant went to his house. And we go to this house, and this guy has literally $1 billion+. And his home is about, I think it was about 1,100 to 1,200 square feet. And I said, this is really interesting that this is your home. I expected this elaborate palace or something. I don't know what, And he says, but let me show you something. And then we walk next door, and there's a 15,000 square foot garage that has all these cars. And he said, people think, I'm eccentric. I said, does it make you happy? He said, yes. I said, then that's all that matters. So what makes you happy? Is it, I want to own a Prius, and that's what you want to own, and that's what makes you happy? Is it, you want to have a grand castle? Is that what makes you happy? Is it, I want to have an intimate relationship that looks like this? This is what makes me happy. I want to have children. I don't want to have children. It's a very personal choice of what makes you happy. And that's something that we really don't stop to define a lot of times in our life. What kind of environment do you want? What kind of relationships do you want? What kind of work do you want? What kind of, relationships with work people do you want? Do you want to own your own company? Whatever it is, define it. Because if you don't define it and you don't put it out there, you can't manifest it. If there is not a goal for me to look at where I'm going to, I'm never going to get there. It's going to be up in the air. And it's only ever going to live inside me. The minute that I vocalize it or the minute that I write it down, I'm starting to put it into tangible form.
Let me play you. Let me just play you some words, and I've been throwing this into the shows recently because I think it's hugely motivational. I don't know if you've heard this. This was on the internet recently by Jim Carrey, and I just want to play you a snippet of it because I think this is amazingly powerful stuff. This is Jim Carrey as well.
My father could have been a great comedian, but he didn't believe that was possible for him, and so he made a conservative choice. Instead, he got a safe job as an accountant, and when I was 12 years old, he was let go from that safe job, and our family had to do whatever we could to survive. I learned many great lessons from my father, not the least of which was that you can fail at what you don't want, so you might as well take a chance on doing what you love.
What do you think of that?
I love that. I look at it like working out. So I figure it this way. If I work out, it's going to hurt, right? You're going to have you're going to be activating those muscles. There's going to be some ache. There's going to be some, if you're really working out. If I don't work out, I'm going to hurt. And so I look at it this way. There is a cost to choosing to step in, and there's a cost to choosing to step back. And so, what do you have to lose? You might as well go for it. I love that.
I love it as well. And when I heard it, because it was Jim Carrey, I wasn't expecting something so profound. But it's truly amazing. It's truly amazing words. And, if I hadn't have built this show around this Steve Jobs, I would have built it around that, because I think that is absolutely integral to, as you say, designing success.
I love it. That's great. And no, I didn't expect the same either when you said Carrey is coming on. I went, what?
Yeah, you expect Ace Ventura or something.
Oh, boy, what are we going for? Yeah.
So, Shellie, just before we put you on the Sermon on the Mic and we send you back in time to have a one-on-one with your younger self, where is your life now? Are you still aiming for more, or are you content? Are you going to settle back? What's on the radar for Shellie?
I guess coming into more mass media and taking the message to the next level of what I feel I'm supposed to be doing. And so the Women of Global Change is expanding. All of that that'll be announced very soon, and really bringing out and into mass media the messages of hope, of a knowledge and inspiration.
And what is scaring you at the moment?
I always am stepping out on the edge. On the edge. Are you kidding me? If I'm not on the edge, I'm not playing big enough, So I guess really, I guess the biggest thing actually, and here's a personal thing, my daughter is actually getting ready to leave for college. She graduated a year early and, did her 4.2 and, got her college scholarships and, academic-wise and all this stuff. So, I had a chapter of my life that changed when I had my daughter, and I have another personal chapter of my life that is about to change again. And even though it's sad, and there's a part of it that's, I'm sad and I'm a little fearful, I'm excited. I'm really excited about going into this next chapter.
You could be a granny in a few years' time.
Oh, no, let's not go there. She's 16. Oh, heck no.
Okay, in 10 years' time.
Yeah, thank you. All right. That's much better.
I'll leave it as that. Right, okay, let's get you to the end of the show now. I really don't want to say goodbye to you, but this is so important. And this is the part when we send you back in time to have a one-on-one with your younger self. And if you could go back, would you talk to the young girl in Boston with only one pair of shoes? Would you talk to the feather blanket plucker or stuffer? What age of Shellie would you speak to, and what words of advice would you give? So this is the Sermon on the Mic.
Here we go with the best bit of the show, the Sermon on the Mic, the Sermon on the Mic.
Okay. I would definitely talk to the 20-year-old Shellie. First off, I think the one that had one pair of shoes was very open-minded. And I think that the 20-year-old Shellie started to encounter a lot of paradigms. And so one of the things that I would tell the 20-year-old woman is to not worry so much about hardships or about love or about so many other paradigms, because in the long run, there is a karma and there is a path and there is a opening. And so many doors shut for the 20-year-old in different areas that there was so much uncertainty. So I would say, have more certainty, trust your intuition more, take more chances, and be bold and yet have a little temperance.
Isn't it fascinating that the Shellie that was 20 is so different from the Shellie today? And it's the way life should be, isn't it, really?
It absolutely is. Somebody asked me if I'd ever go back to being 20 years old, and I said no. I have loved every step of this process so far, and I'm enjoying every day of it now. And I think that's part of what it's about.
Absolutely. How can people who have been listening to you and are inspired by you actually connect with you, Shellie?
Well, they can go to info@successisbydesign, or they can reach me at info@thewomenofglobalchange.com.
Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today, joining up the dots of your life. And please come back again when you have more dots to join up, because I do believe that by joining up those dots and connecting our past, it's the very best way to build our futures. Shellie Hunt, thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice That Every Successful Entrepreneur Practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.